Hey, what is up guys? My name is Oleg, this is Bond. Welcome back to the channel. If you're new to the channel and like the content, please subscribe. It's finally time to do a review and share my thoughts about Seiko SKX. I don't think there is a YouTube channel out there that reviews watches that hasn't done a video about Seiko SKX. These watches are legendary, they're well loved, they have a cult following, and I was kind of putting off doing this video almost because I wanted to do this watch justice, and also I wanted to do the review as fair and as unbiased as I possibly could because I truly do love this timepiece. Spoiling the review a little bit. Seiko SKX009. Let's start the review by looking at the case dimensions. We have a diameter of 42 millimeters, a lug-to-lug width of 45 millimeters, a lug width of 22 millimeters, and the thickness of 13.5 millimeters. A 42 millimeter diameter case would be considered a pretty big watch on most watches. However, this watch here fits smaller wrists as well as larger wrists, and that's because of the short lug-to-lug width, only 45 millimeters. So the case appears to be almost square. Of course, it's not square, but the way it fits onto the wrists, it fits both smaller wrists and it fits larger wrists, and I'm guessing that's part of the reason why this watch is so appealing to so many people. Of course, we have all stainless steel case with the stainless steel case back, and I have mine on this Jubilee bracelet. We'll come back to the bracelet in a minute. The crystal is Hardlex crystal, and we have a unidirectional 120 click bezel. Here's what the bezel action sounds like. Very smooth, just the right amount of resistance, clicky. I really like this bezel, the way it turns, and just the right amount of resistance, as I mentioned, and the right amount of clickiness to it, so it's very satisfying to turn. My aligns somewhat well. It's not perfect, and these watches are known to have bezels that are not aligned exactly correctly. All printed dials, so nothing here is applied, including the indices. They're just painted on. Superluminova Lume, the Seiko SKX diver watches, and basically all Seiko diver watches are known for their lume. Let me pop a lume shot on the screen right now. Yeah, the lume is very impressive. This is perhaps the most impressive lume on any watch in my collection, maybe rivaled by the Omega Seamaster. I might do a comparison of the lume at some point in the future. Let me know if you guys would be interested in that video. We also have the syringe style hour hand and this kind of arrow style minutes hand, and the seconds hand with the lollipop counterweight. Looking at it in the dark, a lot of people complain that it doesn't make sense to have lollipop on the other side of the seconds hand. Not a lot of writing on the dial. We have Seiko, automatic, and divers 200 meters written on the dial, and that's it. Now the divers 200 meters is very interesting because that's actually the indication that this is ISO certified watch. On most watches you would just see the 200 meters and whatever it is in feet. Water resistance, I think it's 600 feet, and that's pretty much it. They're not allowed to put divers because it's not a certified divers watch. However, from my understanding, these watches are tested as proper divers watches, and that's another reason why they're so popular. Now, to be honest, I don't think anyone is diving at the depth of 200 meters wearing this watch. Man, we have these weird depth rating obsessions and these weird speed obsessions. You know, who cares how how many seconds it takes a car to go from 0 to 60, but nevertheless that's a huge obsession for a lot of people, and that 1 second or 2 seconds difference makes a huge difference to the car enthusiast, just like this 200 meters ISO certified makes a huge difference to someone who doesn't even dive, like myself. It's like that Breitling that has the radio signal, and there's also a Citizen that has the radio signal. If you get lost somewhere or stranded on an island, you pull this pin out and the GPS location will be sent to the Breitling head office, and they will be able to locate you. Now, how often does that happen? My guess, it never happened, and it's probably a useless thing, but nevertheless, our thinking is, just in case that ever happens to me, I will be okay. And this depth rating is the same thing. It's just in case I ever go down to 200 meters underwater and my head doesn't explode, at least my watch will be fine. At the 3 o'clock position, we have date complication, and at the 4-hour position, there is the screw down crown with some crown guards. Now the crown is unsigned, and it's easy to operate. So we unscrew it here. Let's move. So put the crown into the second position. As you can see, the movement is non-hacking. So this watch features a Seiko 7S26 movement, very popular introductory movement in a lot of Seiko models. Now, in my opinion, that's a bit of an outdated movement. It doesn't have hacking, doesn't have hand winding. My watch is fairly accurate, so I'm getting within 10 seconds per day. So that's fantastic for a watch that costs $200. However, I wish it had hand winding. The hacking, I can live without, but hand winding really bothers me, because obviously this is not the only watch in my collection. So just taking it out of the box and having to do that Seiko shuffle, you know what I'm talking about, where you shake the watch back and forth in order to get it started. And rotor power is not as good as actually winding the crown, so it's not the best thing to not have hand winding. But then again, I wonder if they put hand winding in all of the Seiko SKX watches, would we love them this much? And what are we gonna complain about, guys? I mean, come on. Part of the fun of having this watch is actually complaining about all the little things that are quote-unquote wrong with this watch. So now that we have hours position, or the hands position, at 6 o'clock, what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna demonstrate to you what the day change looks like. So one way, so we put the crown in the first position, and when we rotate the crown in one direction, it changes the date, and when we rotate the crown in the other position, it changes the days of the week. And as you can see, mine has English as well as Roman numerals for days of the week. Some of them I've seen have Chinese writing for the second option instead of Roman numerals. Some of them have Arabic. So it's varied depending on the watch, and depending, I guess, for which market the watch was produced for. And as you can see, the Saturday and Sunday are written in different colors. So Saturday is blue and Sunday is red. All the other days of the week are just black. Now let's talk about the bracelet. The watches come on either a Jubilee style bracelet like this one, or they also come on the rubber strap. And a lot of people actually replace the bracelets, and there is also even a kind of a subcategory of businesses that has been born, almost a new industry, or a part of an industry, creating bracelets for these watches specifically. That's how popular these watches are. They create the crystals, because this one doesn't have sapphire crystal, it has hardlex crystal, which is a mineral crystal that Seiko says is proprietary to them. It's not as scratch resistant as sapphire is, but apparently it's less of a crush resistance, so under water pressure it wouldn't crack as a sapphire crystal would. I don't know how true that is, because this watch is 200 meter water resistant, but they have sapphire crystals on watches that are 500 meter water resistant. So I don't know if that claim is actually true or not. But anyways, coming back to the bracelet. So I actually really love this Jubilee style bracelet. It's just so retro, it's so 80s, and it's so damn comfortable. A lot of people complain about it, and I can see why. I mean, it is a bit rattly, it does make a bit of noise when you wear it, but it's just so comfortable. And fun fact, these bracelets are pretty much identical to the bracelets on old Rolex Datejust, on Tudor Rangers, on all of these vintage Rolex watches. Now the clasp is just a pressed metal clasp, nothing special here. Again, a lot of people like the new engineered clasp on it, and it adds a nice weight to the watch, because the watch is a bit top heavy when you wear it on your wrist, just because the bracelet is so light and so flexible then that the watch itself just feels very heavy, and if you don't size it properly to your wrist, it would feel a bit uncomfortable. We have the fold over guard with the Seiko written on it. The clasp does feel very secure. I'm afraid that it's gonna fall off my wrist. And we also have hollow end links, which again is a bit of a complaint from a lot of people. They expect solid end links at this price point. And also we just have the push pins instead of the screw in pins. And now the case back is beautiful. Again, they went an extra mile with this one. Seiko did. They have the tsunami wave. Very beautiful, well done. Let me just pop it on my wrist and show you what the watch looks like. And here's the watch on my 7¼ inch wrist. As you can see, it fits perfectly. So as I mentioned, it is a bit top heavy if you don't size it correctly. So you shouldn't have too much space by the buckle. Otherwise, the watch will be flipping over. I chose the 009 model with the Pepsi bezel instead of the 007 because Mr. Bond over here wanted me to go for 007 for obvious reason. Bond 007, you get it. So anyways, I went for the Pepsi bezel because I feel it's a lot more historically accurate. It gives the watch a really cool vintage, really cool retro look. Now, especially on the Jubilee bracelet, again, a lot of people complain about the Jubilee bracelet. I personally love it. So let me mention some of the negatives of the watch, and then I'm gonna go into positives and why this watch probably wins the most wrist time from all the other watches in the past year. So the negatives, here we go. First of all, the movement doesn't have hacking, doesn't have hand winding. Hacking, I can live without. Hand winding, for me, it's an absolute must. If it were up to me, I would definitely put hand winding into that watch. Number 2, the hardlex crystal, lack of sapphire crystal. Number 3, again, not a personal negative to me, but to a lot of people, the fact that the clasp is just a pressed metal clasp, the fact that the bracelet doesn't have solid end links, they're just push pins instead of screw down pins. So all these things are perceived as negatives to a lot of people. Again, to me, not a huge deal. Another negative is the fact that the bezel a lot of times doesn't properly align. In mine, it kind of does, but sort of doesn't. It's weird. On one day, I think it aligns perfectly, but the next day I look at it and I'm like, it's just a little off. The fact that the watch is a bit top heavy, especially on the Jubilee bracelet, and also it doesn't have a lot of detail in terms of finishes. It's all polished finish, not a signed crown. So as you can see, there are quite a few negatives or perceived negatives with the watch. To be honest with you, my only negative, real negative with the watch is the fact that it doesn't have hand winding. The hardlex crystal bothers me a little bit, but you know what? It's not a big deal. I tend to take care of my watches pretty well. And this watch, you know what? If I scratch the crystal, it's not the end of the world. I would just replace the crystal with time. So what are my loves with this watch? Well, it's very hard to explain. It's not my favorite watch in the collection, and it's not the most expensive watch in my collection, and it's not the best watch in my collection. But if my collection got destroyed tomorrow, for whatever reason, I lost all the watches in the collection, this watch would be the very first watch that I would buy back. I know, it's weird. Actually, maybe leave a comment below, let me know what would be the first watch that you would buy back if your whole collection disappeared. I've did a lot of activities in this watch. I went skiing, I went snowboarding in it, I played all kinds of sports, basketball, tennis, hiking in the watch. I went to swimming pool, I went to a lake. It's actually my very favorite vacation watch because it's not too expensive. It still looks good, it's very tough, so I can take it with me into the lake. As I mentioned, swimming pool, hot springs. I pretty much took this watch everywhere. So many great memories with it, probably will never leave my collection for that reason. So it's just very comfortable, it's easy decision to make, and I think that's why this watch wins so much wrist time. It's just there, I put it on my wrist and I go. Of course I have to do Seiko shuffle before I go because no hand winding. Again, come on Seiko, step up your game. But it's just super comfortable to wear. The best analogy I have for this watch is actually two different analogies. Maybe they don't make any sense, but hear me out. One analogy is like your favorite pair of jeans. It's not appropriate to wear them in all situations, And you know, they're not the best jeans necessarily that you own, but they're the most comfortable, they're the most kind of worn in. They're the jeans that you put on, you don't think about it. In the morning, you just kind of go to your closet and you take this pair of jeans, you put them on because they're your favorite pair of jeans. And that's how I feel about this watch. It's just comfortable, it's a no-brainer. I just put it on if I don't want to think about what watch to wear, and I go. But the second analogy I also have about this watch is like having a very cheap beater car. You know, you have this car that costs a couple of grand and you don't really care if you ding it, if you scratch it, if you hit something. It's just easy to drive, easy to park, you don't have to think about. And not to say that this watch I don't care about, and if I scratched it I would be upset, but I wouldn't be devastated. And it's just I have this perception in my head that nothing can happen to this watch, just like nothing can happen to this beater car, because this watch sort of was designed to be thrown around a little bit, if you will. So somewhere in between those two analogies, I know probably doesn't make any sense. The old jeans that fit you perfectly, that you just go to as an outfit, and the old beater car that you can park it, you can hit a curb with, whatever, you don't really care. Somewhere around there is how I feel about this watch. If you don't have one in your collection, I would recommend you getting one. Get one on the Jubilee bracelet. I think these bracelets are pretty great. I don't know why so many people put them on the third-party bracelets. To me, they're perfect, they're comfortable, and they are very retro. If you have a smaller wrist, this watch would still fit you because of the short lug-to-lug width. However, you could also go with the smaller version. There's the SKX013, which is a smaller, I think it's 36 millimeters or 37 millimeters version of this. So again, a lot of guys with smaller wrists choose to go for that, or maybe you have a mid-size wrist but you just like smaller watches. I think that watch would fit you perfectly. All right guys, so I appreciate you watching until the end. I know this video is probably going to be very long, but I have a lot of things to say about this watch because I really enjoy wearing it. I really enjoy this watch, and I wanted to share as much information, as many thoughts as possible about it, because honestly there isn't much that hasn't been already said about this watch, but I just wanted to tell it from my perspective, from my point of view, of wearing it after a year. And as you can see, I still love it, and if I lost it I would buy it back in a second. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you next time.